Thank you. Thank you. Ow, it burns.
When you build an app in Flutter, it creates native applications for all the platforms you specify, most often iOS and Android. And there are configuration files for those platforms that you sometimes need to edit. FlutterFlow now allows you to edit these files within FlutterFlow. And the first set of files we provided are the AndroidManifest, Info.plist, Runner's Entitlement, and the ProGuard rules. So in this video, we're going to talk about what these files are, how to edit them, and what are some common things you'd want to do. Now, for many packages where you would need to edit these files, FlutterFlow already does this. For instance, packages for image gallery, camera, and location data. But there are plenty of other packages on PubDev where you need them. So first, what are these? Well, these can be split up into the platforms they run in. But very briefly, here's what each file does. The AndroidManifest defines essential configuration for your Android app, including app identity, permissions, components like activities and services, and hardware and software requirements. Info.plist specifies iOS app configuration such as permissions, supported device capabilities, versioning, and essential metadata used by the app at runtime. Runner.entitlements controls permissions and capabilities granted to the iOS app, such as push notifications, iCloud access, Apple Pay, and background services. And ProGuard rules. These provide rules for Android builds to shrink, optimize, and obfuscate code, reducing app size and improving security. Now, you don't have to memorize what each of these files is or how to configure them. The package author on the PubDev page will provide instructions for how they need to be modified. So here's our app, and we want to integrate that NFC package. And to do that, we have to edit some of those configuration files. So come over to custom code right here, and on the left, we have these files. And we've got our code here, and some file settings, our properties and variables right here. Now, there's two ways to edit this file. Most of the time, you're going to come over here and add properties like this that we'll do in a second. But there's a less common way, and that's by clicking this unlock button right here. Now, when you do this, you will fully manage this info.plist. So you need to be careful when you do this, because normally FlutterFlow is editing this file. So when you enable services and disable services, FlutterFlow is making changes to this file. If you unlock it, you are taking full control over this file. So be careful, because it will affect how your app works. Now, one other thing, you can see that properties section disappeared. Now, if you've already defined some variables and you unlock, when you lock it back up, you'll see them come back here. Variables allow you to manage different configurations for various build environments like development, staging, and production, without manually editing files for each build. So here are some common use cases: API keys and service credentials, backend environment URLs, app display names, bundle ID and application ID suffixes, URL schemes for deep linking, push notification environments, associated domains, and app groups. Okay, let's add the properties we need. And in order to find them, we need to go over to the package's PubDev page right here. And if you scroll down, we're going to be using iOS, so that's right here, and it tells you what we need. And we're going to need to add something to our entitlements and a few things to our info.plist, or as ChatGPT pronounces it, Info.plist. Okay, so what are these? Well, if you click in here, it'll bring you to the documentation where it'll give you the key itself, as well as the type. Here, it's an array of strings. Now, this reader session formats entitlement is a key in your app's entitlements file that specifies the type of NFC tag data formats your app is authorized to interact with. This allows your app to declare its support for specific NFC data formats. Now, of course, if this is getting confusing, just use your favorite LLM and it'll be able to help you out. But let's add this to our entitlements. So let's go over to our Runner.entitlements. Let's add an entitlement. We'll give it a nice title. We'll add the key here. So an opening tag, paste that in, and a closing tag. And then the value. And this NDEF is a standardized format for exchanging information between NFC devices and tags. Okay, great, that's it. Let's save. All right, next let's deal with our info.plist stuff, but I didn't save, so let's cancel that. Save, And now we can go over. So here we need to add our reader usage description right here. And when you're using the NFC hardware, it's essential to inform users about the purpose of accessing the device's hardware. And you do this by adding this key to your Info.plist. This key provides your users with a message explaining why your app requires this access. Okay, so we are going to need this right here. So let's add a property, give it a nice title, paste in that key, and then the description. Great. Let's save that and save. 2 down, 1 to go. Now, these additional ones depend on the specific NFC device you're using. And if you're using one with Felica standards, as I am, you need to explicitly declare the system codes your app supports. All right, let's go add that. So let's add in another property here. It will be Felica codes, paste in our key and our specific codes. Okay, great. Let's save that. And that's it. Our configuration files are done. Now we just need to add the code. So let's add a custom action right here. And we're going to call this read NFC. And what we want to happen is that when the NFC card is detected, we want to execute some logic, some action flow. So we're going to add an argument right here that will be our action. And it will be of type action. And let's close that up. And lastly, let's add our pubspec dependency. So over here, let's just grab it up there and we can paste it in. All right, we're ready to grab the boilerplate right there and copy it to our editor. Lastly, we need our import. So we can look down here and it's not there. So let's just jump over to the example and yep, there it is. Okay, let's grab this import and paste it in. Beautiful. I've prepared some code already, so I'm just going to paste it in. All right, so this code is pretty simple. We're just checking if the NFC manager is available. And if it is, we're going to start a session. And then when it's discovered, this is where we want to execute whatever logic we define. So we're just going to add our argument here. So this will be await action. And we've added some debugging information that we'll be able to see when it's actually discovered. Okay, great. So let's save and compile. All right, great. This is done. Now let's just implement this logic. So let's come back over to our app. We want to execute this when the user clicks on our floating action button right here. So we're in our action flow editor and let's give ourselves some more space. When the user taps, we want that custom action to read NFC, and here's our action flow that'll be executed when the NFC card is discovered. So let's open up there, and I've already prepared an animation for our bottle icon right here. So there it is. And let's close it and we are ready for testing. But we can't test right here because of course your computer doesn't have an NFC reader, or at least mine doesn't. So I'm gonna have to test on my physical device, which means I'm gonna use local run. Now, if you haven't used local run, it's found inside of the desktop version of FlutterFlow and you can download it here. Using the FlutterFlow desktop gives you a bunch of different benefits. 1, it's a little bit snappier. 2, you can test on a bunch of different devices at a time, like a simulator, a physical device, and the web. And it gives you additional debugging tools. So I'm gonna jump over to FlutterFlow Desktop so that we can test this out. All right, so we're in FlutterFlow Desktop here, and we're gonna come up here and you can see that our local run is ready. Now, if you've never set it up before, I've left some documentation and a link to a video to help you set it up, but you can just come into this gear right here and you can walk through this tutorial to help you set it up. Now, I've already got mine set up here, so I'm just gonna click Get Devices to see which devices I have available here to test on. Okay, so here's my physical devices and here are the other devices we can test on. You can also launch your iOS simulator if you want to do that. So I'm going to add this device to the queue right here for testing and click Test. But I'm not actually going to be able to test on this. And that's because I need to add a capability, the NFC capability, in Xcode to be able to test this. So I'm going to show you that process. When you start testing, this will both save the changes in your app to your local Flutter project and open up Xcode. So I'm going to switch over to Xcode. Okay, so I'm here in Xcode and you can see that it's currently running. That's from FlutterFlow. Make sure you've got Runner selected right here. And I'm in the second signing in capabilities, and I'm going to add a capability, and I'm going to add the near field communication tag. That's NFC. Okay, so this is added right now, but I need to restart my actual app, and I need to run it from Xcode here. But that's easy to do. Just click this button right up there. That'll terminate the last session and start a new one with this capability enabled. Okay, so this is running now. So we can look down here for the logs, And I'm going to click on our button and scan an NFC tag, and beautiful, it was there and discovered. Now, what if you wanted to make some additional changes? What would that process look like? Well, let's jump back into FlutterFlow and I'll show you. Okay, so we're here and you can see that that test session was terminated. So it's not running right now, it's simply running in Xcode. But if you made some changes right here, you can just click test again and it's gonna export that project, save it to your local system, and then do those steps we did before. So let's switch back to Xcode. We're gonna keep the Xcode version. We're going to go back up into Runner, add the capabilities again, which we want our near field communication tag, and it'll terminate that session and start a new one with these capabilities. Lastly, let's see how to use variables here. And we'll use it in the context of different environments. So let's set up a few environments here. So we're in our dev environments right here, and we've got our standard production one, but let's add one for staging and another one for development. And if we look back at our Info.plist here, what we're going to want to change is this CF bundle display name, simply the display name of your app. So let's go back into our dev environments right here and add a value, and this will be display name. And in here for each environment, we'll just add in which environment it is. So this will be development and staging and production. Okay, finally, let's make a variable for that. So let's come into here, let's add a variable. We're gonna call it display name, and we're gonna bind that value to our environment variable right here. Okay, great. So we've created this variable, but we haven't actually added it to our info.plist here. So we're gonna need to unlock it right here. Of course, we are fully managing this right now, so just be careful of that. And now we go to our CF bundle display name here, and the value, this string right here, instead of that, we want to bind it to this variable. And we do that through double curly braces right here. Display name. Okay, great. So let's save that. And we can confirm that this variable is propagating by downloading the code in each environment and actually inspecting that info.plist. So right now we're in production. So if you download that code and open it up in your code editor, you can see here we've got that display name and we've got production. Now let's download a different environment's code. So let's go here and let's switch over to development. You can see up there, we're now in development. Download this code. And now if we come into this info.plist, we can see under our display name, we've got the variable value we would expect. Beautiful. And that's it. That's how to edit the native configuration files in FlutterFlow. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you in the next video.